Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's DJ here on another hands-on SAP Dev with QMacro. Sometimes I sort of forget the title of the series, but it's written right in front of me here, hands-on SAP Dev with QMacro on my OBS display. So welcome. Thank you everybody for joining. It's great to see you all again. I've got my microphone here. Greetings. Srikanth, how are you? Good evening to you there, sir. Thanks very much for joining. This, as I mentioned in the previous live stream, this is going to be my last live stream episode for at least a couple of weeks. I'm going to Mechelen in Belgium tomorrow to give a code jam alongside a colleague of mine, Marius, who you've seen on this series before, on CAP, to some folks in Mechelen, near Brussels. And then I'm on holiday for a week away, maybe away from interwebs generally, so that's the reason I'm not going to be around, but I'll be back sort of towards the end of this month. So anyway, so this is an extracurricular episode because, yes, of course, we do live streams on some Wednesday at this time, but this is an extra one. And it's to continue with where we left off with the workflow stuff that we were doing. So we'll dive into that shortly. Thank you also to all those new followers, BinPath, Ollie the Bear, The Wasted. Thank you very much. And also super thanks to those who are subscribing. Ollie the Bear, Doug, Cesar, thank you very much, Doug, and Dark85, as well as Kino81. I really appreciate those subscriptions. It's awesome. It makes my day when I see those. So thank you very much. BinPath, I like that handle, BinPath. So yeah. Anyway, okay. So let me minimize that. I've got the chat down here. Everything seems to be fine in terms of stream health. Let's dive into the main scene here. I've got a couple of things I wanted to share. There was something Fred tweeted something, and I was going to reply. Then I saw that he was saying he's going to miss this one because he's going to be in the car, I guess, getting home or getting somewhere in time to watch Graham Robbo's test-driven development webinar. So that piqued my interest, and I also wanted to highlight it to you folks here. If this is going to be for an hour, of course, this episode. But if you have time after this, straight after this, you can go maybe register for it and go straight into Graham's test-driven development with ABAP webinar. I did have a look where it was. By the way, here it is. You can register here. Where are we? I love Graham's view from his window, and anybody with this sort of view out of their work window is bound to put together an interesting webinar. And if it's not interesting, you can just get him to turn the camera around and point it out the window. So there we go. So that's Graham's view. That's Graham's webinar, test-driven development with ABAP, part of the ASUG webcast series. So get your brain around that, and I guess you can still register right now. Okay, so that's that. One thing, I just this second saw a tweet from an old friend of mine, John Patterson, Jasper07, and I do like the way that John talks about things. And I saw this, oh no, and I also saw it was in reply to Ronnie. Ronnie, are you around on the call, on the episode? And then I scrolled up to see what he was saying oh no about. And it's like an automated post to a blog post, an automated tweet to a blog post, and I think I can guess even from this and looking at the screenshot here, or what John is knowing about, and it's as we saw just then, it's been retweeted. Let's see here. Let's go and can we click on that? Oh yes, there we go. I sort of have an inkling as to what this might be an oh-no about, which is treating an OData service as though it weren't an OData service, treating it as a JSON service, which technically, of course, you can do, and technically you can interact with an OData service while ignoring all the goodness you get from OData by treating the resources, the JSON representations of those resources, as plain old JSON. And I'm guessing here as well, this address set. I'm sorry, I just noticed here employee set is spelled wrong here, but anyway, well, spelled wrong. You know, it's a property name. That might be what the person wanted. But address set here gives me a clue that it might be an OData entity set. Let's just dig into that. Actually, I'm curious. Perform CRUD operations on employee info in SAP Web IDE using SAP UI5. Let's look at the manifest. Yes, okay, so the main service upon which this UI5 app operates is indeed an OData service. Why it's scripted out, I have no idea, but anyway. SAP, occasional platform user, OData. And so, yeah, okay. John, I think you were right to oh no this. I thought we'd stopped seeing this sort of stuff in the olden days. But anyway, that's interesting as well. What's going on here? Yes, this is also dangerous, isn't it? With you know, what happens if you reorder those labels in input fields? Then, well, actually, no. Why? Sorry, why? This is actually in the view, isn't it? Why are these input fields being given explicit IDs that would be generated in that form anyway? I don't. Anyway, let's not even go there. Yeah. So this is a little bit dangerous as well, isn't it? If those change around, if it's a normally generated one, sort of implicitly generated. But anyway, that sort of made me, well, that's rather large, isn't it? That made me smile. So thank you, John, for pointing that out. What else? Doing that already? Okay, yes. Oh, good. Srikant, so you're going to be watching Graham's test-driven development live stream. That's great. So I did notice in the news from the Worldwide Developer Conference at Apple that they're switching from the Bash shell to the Z shell, or Z shell if you speak with an American accent, which is interesting because I've always sort of been looking for an excuse to try the Z shell out more. I know it's got lots of features, and quite a bit of compatibility with Bash as well. I'm still a big fan of Bash, but I was digging into this a little bit, and I understand that one of the reasons why Apple are moving from Bash to Z shell or Z shell is that while I think the Z shell is MIT licensed, which is quite a nice license, the Bash shell source code is licensed with GPL version 3, which causes some issues for some organizations like Apple. So maybe it's that. Anyway, because of course, on this live stream, we sort of, favor terminals and shells and all sorts of dot file goodness, prompted a lot by Ronnie, in fact. And here's my dot files that have been recently shared on the SAP samples namespace on GitHub. I thought that this was quite a nice bit of news. Maybe it's worth us digging into the Z shell sometime later. But anyway, I thought that was quite interesting. So there we go. That's that. I wanted to jump straight in to where we left off last time, which was last Friday, wasn't it? I also want to look at the Business Hub, which I've got that already here. Let me just, what a surprise. Your browser session has expired. We should really have a campaign to the SAP Cloud Platform folks to extend the session timeout. I actually re-logged on less than half an hour ago, so maybe there's something going on. But anyway, there we go. Let's log on. And where we left off was that we had a user task in a workflow definition. Oh, what a surprise, we've expired there as well. In a workflow definition, an instance of a workflow definition, and the workflow definition is this one here. in the shop stuff project. So we're just calling a service task here, which goes and uses this shop service destination, which goes through the SAP Cloud connector that I've got running as a Docker container, blah, blah, blah. This is all part of the setup for a workflow code jam set of content that I've been creating. And, oh, there we go. Peaceable Kingdom Pioneer. What a great name. Welcome, by the way. Welcome, welcome, welcome. There's also Fish Shell, but it's GPL2. Still an interesting shell in comparison. Interesting, yeah. Maybe we'll have a shell showdown episode at one stage. I'd be very interested to learn about Z shell and Fish Shell and lots of other shells. I think my son Joseph, he uses Z shell, and he's very happy with it. But anyway, in fact, we're going to hopefully do a little bit of shell stuff, so shell scripting, in this episode. So yeah, we've got the shop service thing, and then it makes a call there and adds some data to the context of an instance, and then it has this sort of hands-on user task, which uses this generic user task UI, which is here. And I was explaining and showing this last time. This is something that I wrote partly to teach myself how the inbox API worked and how to build a UI component that fits inside the My Inbox sort of container. And also partly because I wanted something generic that was good enough for me to do demos with, and this was before the workflow forms feature hit the streets. And now, of course, we've got the workflow forms feature, so this generic user task UI component is pretty redundant, but it does help us explore little bits about the workflow API, right? And the task model. So that's what we're about to do. And in fact, I've set it up as it was at the end of Friday, which was to have a task in my inbox. So we can see here in the workflow instances, we've got one running workflow instance. And if we look at the context, we can see that the service task has been called and we've got this product data. Okay, so the service task, this one here, goes and just grabs the product data, just does an OData read operation on product with the ID HT1000. And we've got that in there. There's the product ID HT1000 somewhere, must be somewhere, can't see it. ID HT1000. And that's it. And the rest of the data is actually from the instantiation, the manual instantiation of the workflow instance. Now, where we left off was that in the execution log, we can see that there's a task with an instance ID waiting for us, as in me, to interact with. So there's the task there. Okay, that's the information about the task. But if I now go to my inbox, there's the task waiting for me here, the notebook basic, and that's where we left off. In fact, let me just bring up the debugger, because specifically where we left off, we had a breakpoint, and the breakpoint wasn't being reached. So let's put a breakpoint here as well, and let's carry on debugging. Now, is this? What I could do actually is move. The past few Chrome versions, you can now dock left. There we go. That's quite nice. So my face doesn't get in the way. And also one of the really nice advantages of docking left. Oh, okay. Forget that. Yeah, is that you get a little bit more space for the master. But anyway, so yeah, this is where we got to, and if we have a look at the view, refresh our memory, the view is a really simple sort of app control with a page in it, and that page has some controls where the properties have bindings to the default model and also this app model as well. Okay, we'll look at the app model shortly, but we've got here a binding to title at the root of the model, and we've got a binding to this thing called form items inside this generic user task sort of node. And of course, within form items, we've got we're assuming we've got a series, an array of property and value pairs that we're going to then display in a list. And that list should basically appear here, okay? This no data is, of course, the default message when there's no information, no data, no rows in a list control. And what was happening, oh yeah, and the component here, if we look at the component, well, in fact, we'll look at the component in the debugger in a second. What was happening is that we weren't hitting the breakpoint. And I had a quick look, let me just make that one bigger. I had a quick look and I think I know why. So there we go. So what is supposed to happen? In fact, why don't we start from up here? So this is the component, the heart of our generic user task UI. And the component gets instantiated by my inbox itself. Okay, and when my inbox instantiates this generic user task component, it passes it some stuff. And there's also, in fact, in the, I did write this, discovering, let me just open up a new window, discovering SAP Cloud Platform workflow. I think I've pasted the link to this before, but anyway, there's the link to the sort of the table of contents for all the different posts. And in the component startup, what we're looking at, yeah, in the component startup post, which is this one, I talk about how or what the link is between the task instance and the UI that is associated with that task instance in order to render the information. And it's this sort of SAP UI 5:/ scheme. Anyway, you can read more about it in that thing there. I read this. It's quite a long post, actually. I can't believe I've written so much rubbish about that stuff. But anyway, so if you want to find out more about what we're looking at today, have a look at this. We don't need to look at that now. So, in fact, why don't we put a breakpoint here? Let me just refresh this now, put a breakpoint. Just to have a look at the startup parameters that the MyInbox container passes to the component when it starts it up. What's this combined buttons? No idea. So the startup parameters, let's go through, and I'm going to use my keyboard to jump over, and over. So now what happens is that the MyInbox instantiates a component and passes it some data, which is available in this sort of startup parameters thing here, which looks basically like that. So we've got an inbox API property, which is in fact a map of different functions: add action, remove action. Remember, the actions are basically these decision buttons at the bottom. And we've got also all sorts of bits and pieces. Most importantly for us as well is this task model, okay, which is an OData model. Okay, so what we do with that task model is it's actually an instance of a task model. In fact, why don't we look at this? Let's go here and go a little bit bigger. Task model dot get metadata. Oops, metadata. It's a JSON model, okay? And we can say task model dot get data. What's the data in it? The data is the data about the user task itself. So in fact, that should tie up, right? So the instance ID we've got there, and we've got the task definition ID. There we go. So we can see all these things that sort of make sense, and we recognize these things here. So the instance ID D9, D3. If we go back here. Oh, in fact, we really want display my inbox. Oh, actually, why don't we just hit enter and see what happens? I want to have a look. I want to go back actually at the workflow instances. So the instance ID of the workflow instance is that, but if we look at the tasks, I'm hoping, yeah, there we go. The instance ID of the task is this D9, D3. So that is what we're looking at there in the task model data. Okay, good. So far, so good. Let's go back to the source and see what else we've got. So basically, oh yeah, there you go. They get the instance ID, D9, D3. And then we use that instance ID. If I make this, in fact, let's just make this huge now so we can see what's going on. We don't really need to see the UI yet. And it uses the workflow API, specifically the task instances aspect of the workflow API to go and get the context of that task. Okay. This is the reason I brought up the API. Business Hub, workflow. There's lots of workflows there. This is the one, workflow API for Neo. Because of course we're messing around with the workflow service on Neo right now. There's also the workflow service available on Cloud Foundry, but we're using the one on Neo. So we use the task instances. Oh, that's the default anyway. There we go. Look, this is the actual API that we're using, or the API path that we're using. V1 task instances, task ID, task instance ID, context. So it goes and gets the context. That's cool. And then what we do, and this is where we got to, is we attached a function to be executed when the API request to go and get the context of that task ID, that task instance was complete, and it went to get the data in that task instance, which of course includes the whole workflow context. Okay, so what was happening though was that we were hitting this. If I was going to, I'll resume script execution, which should jump hopefully to here. Yep. But then it wasn't hitting here, right? If we do that again, we weren't getting anything. And that's because there was an error here. So if I refresh this actually, there we go. Let's just jump again. We don't need that one anymore. Let's just jump straight through to this one and single step through here, and we'll see that we get the trying to get the property generic user task control, but of course that doesn't exist. There's nothing there's nothing in the data in the context called generic user task. So M control is undefined, and of course when we try to do a dot source of an undefined, then it of course explodes and nothing happens, and then the execution doesn't continue. That's the reason. Okay. In fact, if I continue, there we go. Yeah, loading of data failed. Type error, cannot read property source of undefined. Right. So that's why. And we had actually made a mental note to say, well, yeah, we do need to add some data into the context that the generic user task UI can use to work out what to display in my inbox. Okay, so that's what we'll do. We'll add a script task. Make it a little bit bigger. We'll add a script task before the user task. Okay, again, you can use these things here to sort of make it a little bit neater. There we go. Let's have it actually vertically. Why not? Let's put it over there. And this script task, of course, is JavaScript. Why don't we say Marshall data.js. Okay. So this is now the sort of some sample code it commented out. But what we want to do effectively is say $.context, this is how to access the context, .generic user task equals something. Okay. And if we have a look at the component, which is the source that we've just been debugging, we can see that there's going to be a control property within there, right? And within that control property, there's a source property. And that source property has got a point to, okay, has got a point to the node inside the instance data where it should display the data from. So if we have a look at this thing here, the node we want, the node where our data is slash, because don't forget we've got to treat this as an OData model with the slashes to denote the different levels of the hierarchy, slash product data slash D. Okay. Oh, we also, yes, I did say we'd talk about why, because I mentioned last time that it's always D in a JSON representation of OData. OData resources, there's always this D property. We'll talk about that. Remind me, somebody please, Srikanth or somebody, remind me to talk about that. So this is what we want. We want slash product data slash D. And that's where the data will be. And then inside of this mcontrol.properties, so there's another thing called properties in the control, which is basically a list that we map over of property names. So let's say we want to have the name, let's make that a little bit bigger, to have the name and the stock quantity and, I don't know, the average rating, okay? Why don't we have those? And those will then get displayed, hopefully. So if we say here, where are we? In the Marshall data, we'll have this control, which has two things we said, didn't we? Source, something, and then also properties, something. Ooh, there we go. Right, so the properties are easy. It's just an array of names of properties. What did we say? Name, stock quantity, and average rating. There we go. Camel cased. Name, average rating. Okay, and the source is just going to be product data D, isn't it? Because that's where it is, product data D. So that should, I think, be enough. What's it saying here? Unexpected token properties. Oh, there we go, comma. There we go, comma. And now, ooh, information strings must use double quotes. Oh, I hate double quotes. I need to turn this ESLint rule off, but ooh, fix this quotes problem. All quotes problems. What, forever? Nice work, Web IDE. I've never seen that before. That's quite cool. Okay, that's fine. We don't need any of this. Let's get rid of all this. Just to keep it nice and neat. Save that, and let's save our workflow definition. And of course, because we've changed that anyway, we'll deploy or redeploy the workflow definition. There we go. Shop stuff deployed. Fine. Now, I can't remember. Let's just make this a little bit smaller again. Right, yes. We're going to have to create a new instance of the workflow, which will have a new user task, because, of course, there's still no context. There's still no generic user task node in the context of this workflow instance. So let's just clear this one. We're done. Oh, Srikanth, that's okay. Yep, catch up in the replay. Thanks for joining. Really nice to see you, and thank you for the message about the vacation. I will have a great vacation. Okay, so let's create a new instance of the workflow definition shop info or shop stuff. Sorry. Start new instance. That'll do. We don't need to change anything. Okay, good. Now if we go to my inbox, give it a chance, there we go, give it a chance to go and retrieve the data from the ES5 system. Right, okay, now, hopefully, let's just single step through it here. Let's make that a little bit bigger. There we go. Step. mSource is now correctly pointed to the data that we want to grab stuff from. And the mcontrol properties is that list of properties. So hopefully, if I just then continue, we do get to the console here, which is not very exciting. But more importantly, there we go. Let's just kill that. we now get this sort of generic display of the properties we specified. Okay, so that's good. That's good. That's what we wanted to do. Now, I said we'd talk about the workflow API as well. But before we do, yeah, let's go back to this here. I was thinking about this, and then I found out why OData uses this D thing in JSON representations of OData resources, and it's to prevent cross-site scripting attacks. If you imagined, you could actually retrieve. If it was set up, if an OData server was set up appropriately, you could actually retrieve OData resources as pure JSON, as this blog post is doing, via JSON with padding, which is the ability to bring into a running UI in the browser some remote data, and remote data that wasn't subject to same origin policy, because would be retrieved in script tags, okay, which operate differently to the XML HTTP request based data retrieval, which is subject to same origin policy. But the way that works is that with script based data retrieval with JSON with padding, when the response comes back from the script tag retrieval, because it's a script tag, it executes whatever it gets back. Okay, and normally with JSON you have you ask deliberately for a function name, so that then that function name is called with the data, so the data is wrapped with a function call by the data provider, so that when it's actually loaded into the browser, that function gets called, and that function is clearly got to be a part of the UI, right? The UI logic. So that can't happen here. The data that is returned is not just a raw map of values, which could be modified. It could be a raw map of values. It could be some executable JavaScript. It's always wrapped not just in D, but wrapped in a map, wrapped in curly braces, then some sort of property name, and then whatever value of the data is, that's the value of the property name, and that property name just happens to be D. It's a very long-winded explanation, but basically it's to prevent cross-site script attacks. So now we know. Okay, so let's have a look at the workflow API, and let's see if we can. Let's leave this task running here, because I don't think I've. I haven't pressed done here, so it should still be in the running state. So let's see if we can find it with the workflow API. Now, let me log on here. I don't know whether anybody's played around with the SAP API Business Hub. It's quite good. What's my password for that one? Oh, no, what is it? Phew. And in fact, it's got the workflow API has different sort of aspects or grouped sets of resources, and the first one is user tasking system. So you can actually try this out. There's a sandbox API environment, which is a generic API environment that sort of goes to nothing in particular, but you can configure your own environment. Okay, so let's do that. Let's create a new environment. The starting URL is not the one we want. That's AE1. So we want HANA trial. Okay, so because this thing I'm using a HANA trial account. The display name let's say hands on SAP Dev. Why don't we call it that? Now the provider account name of the workflow service API is WFS, right? Just it is. And the consumer account name should be my account name there, that one, right? So, where are we? There. Consumer account name, there we go. And the resulting URL then is BPM workflow runtime WFS-P blah, 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 trial, handout trial on demand.com. authentication, basic authentication. Now, again, my username is that without the trial, and the password is that, I hope. I want to apply it to all APIs in this package and save it, right? So let's save that. So theoretically now, we should be able to get a list of task instances using this, this API sort of explorer. You can hit try out. Retrieve instances by query parameters. Let's just get them all for now, right? Skip top. This looks, I mean, this is not an OData API, I don't think, but there's a very interesting pattern of using a $sign to prefix sort of meta parameters. I'm not sure whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's a thing because, of course, we've got here. Yeah, I suppose it is a good thing because these are generic parameters that are all about the data that gets returned. You know, for paging and start from here, end here, expand these sorts of things. So it's sort of OData-like. But then, of course, you get the real parameters, which is, I want this particular instance ID of this workflow here. I want to filter it by processor or created at or whatever, right? There's loads of stuff. But we can execute it. So don't forget, we are using the API environment that we just created. Hopefully I've put the right password in. Get a response. We'll look at the request URL shortly, but do I recognize this stuff here? Response body. Oh, there we go. Yeah, look, please, can you see that? Please review this request for 25 of stock item notebook basic 19. That's our stuff, isn't it? There's quite a few from testing last week and in between. The last one in the list, which is today, June the 5th, 14:29, which is basically 15:29 local time for me, as in now. That's it, and the status is ready, as in it's still not whatever the status is for complete for tasks. I can't remember. So there we go. That's the usage of the API here. I think what we should do is try it out directly. Okay, we'll try it out directly with curl from the command line. I've already got, because I was messing around with this for something else yesterday, I've already got a username and password squirreled away secretly in using netrc for curl, because curl will support the .netrc technique for storing user IDs and passwords for remote servers. So why don't we start with the Workflow API to do a simple thing like getting something, and then we'll play around with looking at how we might do something not destructive, but doing something with a side effect, as in maybe trying to set the status or set the priority of this task from medium to high. I don't know. Okay, so let's try that. So first of all, let's grab this and see if we can just recreate that. Here, I've got this little empty directory to play around with. Now, curl, if we netrc, there we go. So curl has an option -n, which says read .netrc for the username and password. And .netrc, like I say, is a standard netrc. Yeah, it's a standard that holds credentials. That's here we go. There's the curl. Let's just put that in the thing here as well. Yeah, so it's really useful, especially for things like this where I don't want to have to type my password in all the time. I don't want to show you my password, but I still want to interact with the remote resource. In this case, the HTTP-based resource with basic authentication. So yeah, that's that. So where are we? Okay, there we go. So if we say curl -n, now this URL's got ampersands and things in it, so Lost the, I need to go and get it again. There we go. Request URL. It's got ampersands and all sorts of wonderful stuff. So I'm going to put it in quotes. Let's see what happens. Woo! Okay, that's definitely not an error. That's JSON. And we can see the priority thing here that we saw there. It looks nice. Now, the really nice thing is that that was really simple and also really quick. So why don't we go off-piste a little bit for 5 minutes and enjoy the power of the command line, the power of the shell, the power of the terminal, because the future is terminal. I really need to get that t-shirt printed. And use JQ. Oops, I want to do a new. There we go. JQ is an amazing command line tool for parsing and manipulating JSON. Okay, I did a video actually, YouTube. If you want to have a look, I did a video a while ago. JQ. Oh, there we go. A year ago, using JQ to parse out some data from the SAP Cloud Platform destination stuff. So let me just put that there. If you're interested in JQ, then go to the JQ website, of course, which is this one here, but also have a look at that video. But basically, we're not going to sort of, do much with JQ now, except, well, the first thing we can do is just pipe it into JQ. I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, by default, what it will do is just parse everything, spit everything back out again, so it's almost like, a pass-through. But what it will do on the way is, or as it comes out, is format it nicely, because of course, what we've got right now is this sort of completely raw bit of JSON. But what JQ will do is format it nicely, which is, first of all, really useful. We could put that then in a file. In fact, I'm going to use the S parameter as well to say to curl, do it silently so we don't get that sort of progress bar here. And then also, I'm just going to pipe it to data.json. So now we can look in, and it's really nice, right? We could even Python serve it to ourselves. Port 8. Port 8000. So we can use the power of the Chrome extension that I have to sort of collapse and expand different things here. We can see that each entry in this array is a map representing a user task, and this is the one we saw before, right, with the status ready. So that's really nice, right? So why don't we just do something a bit fun? One thing I'm really getting into is Fuzzy Finder, FZF. If you're not familiar with that, I think we did cover Fuzzy Finder in one of the really early episodes when we looked at the Cloud Foundry command line tool. But if I say, if I say, for example, list, well, that's not going to be very exciting. Touch A, B, C. Yeah, so if I say list and then pipe that into Fuzzy Finder, it will just give me a choice of those things and allow me to, fuzzily find things. And then the output of Fuzzy Finder is just the one we chose, right? Which, again, like I've said before, doesn't feel very useful, but it can be very useful. Do one thing and do it well. But we want sort of a flat list of the user task information. So let's have a look at the data here. Why don't we have, using JQ, the priority and the status, the subject and the priority in the ID. Yeah, ID, subject, priority. Or no, ID, status and subject. Okay, that'll do. ID, status and subject. So if we say JQ, and then we can sort of, JQ has a language. So we can say all of the things in the array, that's the outermost thing, pipe that into, and we can use string interpolation to say, we'll have the ID, and we'll put that first, because it's always the same, it's the same size, and then a tab, and then the status, and then another tab, and then what did we say? Subject. What happens when we do that? Oh, I forgot single quote at the end. Oh, that's nice. Ah, okay, yes, that's good. We're almost there. There's the tab character. But I think what we need to do is go here and add -r for raw output. There we go. That's really nice. So now we can feed that. Let's put the single quote at the end there. Feed that into Fuzzy Finder. It goes and gets the data. Come on. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Is it doing something? Yes, it was. All right, the workflow API took a while to respond there. But now we can say, well, what are the cancelled ones? There we go. That's nice, isn't it? I mean, how nice is Fuzzy Finder? We can say, look for the ready one. There's the ready one there, which is the one we're interested in. And press enter, and what we select gets printed out, right? So then we can say, well, there's the ID. Then we can say, and again, we could sort of cat out the previously retrieved API output response, but let's do it live, as it were. Then we can say cut. Now, in fact, man cut. Cut is another beautiful, Unix, Linux command line utility, which does one thing really well: cut out selected portions of each of a line of file. And the default delimiter is the tab character, which is, sometimes I do think I don't look as stupid as I'm not as stupid as I look, rather. So that's why I put the tab character in there. So we can say cut the first field out. So just print out the first field where the delimiter is a tab, which should just give the ID. There we go, ready. There we go, and there's the ID. So you can imagine building up little scripts to work with the workflow API and building a little sort of terminal-based UI to do all sorts of things. For example, to then do something to cancel something. So why don't we do that in the last the last 10 minutes? Why don't we play around with something else in the workflow API? User task instances. Yeah. If we go here and we can do a patch. Okay, let's just try. I've not tried this before. I really haven't. But I understand the patch to be. I mean, obviously, patch from an HTTP perspective is changing a certain part of the resource by sending that change. Okay, it's like a very focused put. Okay, not post, but put. Patches are very focused put. So specify the request body according to the given schema, blah, 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 blah. So I'm thinking, I don't know, but I'm thinking we could send a patch to set the priority to very high. Because at the moment, the priority is like medium, right? Yeah, medium. So I will try that. Where are we? First of all, and the reason this is hopefully interesting is because for any API call that has side effects, that does something rather than just retrieve data, we need one of these tokens, these cross-site request forgery tokens. I've got to be honest, it does really annoy me that the consistency of CSRF and XSRF. Well, there's no consistency. But anyway, that's just me being pedantic. They mean the same thing. Cross-site request forgery. Cross-site request forgery. In order to use that, we need to use the XSRF or CSRF handling aspect of the API, and the only thing that we can do there is get it. Okay. So why don't we do that? I've got something actually. I remembered just before earlier today. I remembered that I've got in my local projects workflow service proxy, and I've also got a post. No, we don't need those, do we? And delete that as well. Yes. Oh no, we want the fetch. I'll look at the fetch first. This uses curl, and it sends the XCSRF token header with the fetch value to say, please give me a CSRF token. And we're also using the cookie jar because the CSRF token is not of any use at all unless it is sent along with the cookies that were specified when it was issued. Okay, so we have to store the response and the cookies in the response in a cookie jar to be able to reuse those when we do the post. So let's do that. And this is my user here. This is the one we're talking about. So let's try that. Fetch. Ah, yes. In fact, why don't we modify that to use netrc. I think -n is short for minus netrc. Let's try and soon find out. Fetch. Oh, there we go. Yeah, perfect. So there's in curl, when you sort of have it to give you a verbose output, all the arrows going that way, as in greater than signs, that's what gets sent, and what gets received here, is designated or denoted by the arrows going the other way. Okay, so we send that XCSRF token fetch, and we receive a response. There's the token. So let's copy that and just save it in a environmental variable, because let's just change this to netrc. We then use that CSRF token that we've received along with send the cookies that we've received as well. Oops, to do something. Okay, and this was actually to create a new instance of a workflow, but we don't want that. Okay, so in fact, if we have a look, no, actually, what we'll do, save that, and we'll go and copy the data.json payload, which looks like that for creating a workflow instance of this definition shop stuff here. But what we want, I guess, is user task instances, patch. Is that the example value? Yeah. What we want is basically, well, not all of that, but the priority thing. Okay, so it's just, is that all we have? Yeah, okay. Priority very high. Now, I'm only guessing at this. I'm not read any documentation, but that's what it says here, isn't it? Okay, so now, we need a task instance ID. Of course, we need a task instance ID. Okay, and the body, right, okay. So, why don't we try it out? Let's just put something in there and see what the URL is, because I'm guessing the task instance ID, is that running? The task instance ID, oh, did it give me an error? Oh, okay. Well, there we go. Expired. That's so annoying, isn't it? Shop stuff, there we go. That's the one. Show tasks. The instance ID is this one here. There we go. Token, obviously the token is not going to be valid, so that's okay. We're not going to change anything. Let's try that. And just to see what the pattern of the URL is. There we go. Task instances, right, okay. Of course. Yeah, okay, forbidden. 403 forbidden because the CSRF token wasn't valid, which is good. Yeah. Okay, if I'd have scrolled up, I'd have seen it. The task instance ID is not a query parameter, it's actually part of the path info, which makes sense. That's a very nice API. So, v1 task instances, why don't I make that a little bit smaller so we can see that as well. There we go. Let's go back into the post. v1, oh, there we go, task instances. Let's just change this anyway. Task instances, and then we want the task ID, which is that. That was the task ID, wasn't it? Yeah, 5399. And the CSRF token we've got, and now the data we've also got, right? So the data looks like that. So theoretically, is that all we need? Let's try, shall we? Let's just call it something more sensible. Just have a look at it again. NetRC, application.json, cookie jar, verbose, data.json, REST v1 task instances, that one. Okay, let's give it a go, shall we? Patch. Oh, why didn't anybody tell me? Patch. We want to specify the header, don't we? The patch verb, the patch method. Curl help. Isn't it x minus x? I thought it was x to specify the... Yes, it is x minus x. Okay, let's do that. The patch. Let's use the minus request because that's nice long patch. Okay, let's try that. Are you ready? Of course. Okay, I forgot. On line 9, we need a continuation character. Right, third time lucky. Ooh. Okay, came back quite quickly. What is the response that we got? 204. Wow. Let's just see in my inbox. Let's go back. It worked. Very high. Amazing. And within time as well. Okay. I'm very surprised that worked. My expectations on my knowledge, not on the API itself, but on my knowledge of what I was doing was very low. But yeah, I'm really pleased with that. So yeah, basically, there we go. What have we covered? We've covered figuring out what was going wrong with the debugging last time. The generic user task. If you want to work out how to build your own custom UI component for my inbox rather than use forms. Forms are super useful for probably 80-90% of the time, but custom UIs are useful. The generic user task is probably something you want to look at. There's lots of information on that in the Discovering SCP workflow thing, blog post series. We've played around with the workflow API. You've seen you can actually create your own API environment in the SAP API Business Hub. If the session management lets you stay logged on long enough. We've seen how to do non-destructive API calls like read calls, but we've also seen how to do calls with side effects, and for that we need the XSRF token or CSRF token. So I guess that's it. So thank you so much for joining me and keeping me company. I really appreciate it. Yeah, like I say, I'll be off for a couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks, back at the end of the month, back before the end of the month anyway. So until then, have a great day. Enjoy Graham Robbo's test-driven development app, if you want to see that, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, Fabian.